Groupies 85 solutions must actually be terminated.
As we wind down on today's reflections, just a rewind to yesterday, when we saw, of course, Brigadier Ngwashu testifying. During that testimony, he overtly, well, I don't know if it was overt, intentional, or maybe slip of the tongue, exposed the name of witness B in this matter. Are these sort of utterances, or are they seemingly deliberate now? Because it's not the first time that we've seen a witness being exposed by an accused and alleged in this situation.
I mean, there was a point in time when I remember the evidence leader, Advocate Thabang Poe, had actually giving him a statement that had the redacted name, and I really don't know how this, the slip of the tongue, if I may call it, actually came about, because I remember precisely a moment when the chairperson, Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, had wanted to give both the witness as well as the evidence leader time to sort of go through the statements and ensure that this name is really kept under wraps. And I don't know. I think, the commission definitely has to take a very, very firm stance, especially when it has consistently told witnesses to not say these people's names, because as you know, the witness testimony was quite heartbreaking, and the fact that they have been separated from their families because they are in witness protection. So I think the onus now is definitely on the commission and how it can sort of find a way to ensure that these witnesses' identities are concealed until this process is finished, so that nobody should know who they really are.
Absolutely. Smahle, we'll leave it there for today. And we'll catch up with you again tomorrow. That was Smahle Mota, SABC News reporter, just cluing us in on the Madlanga Commission for day 96. A quick pause and then we'll come back. We'll introduce the conversation with Anele Machisi, who's an author and social commentator, and we're wanting to have a conversation around how much are you spending on your child's matric farewell, or even if you don't have a child in matric, perhaps you've engaged this content on social media or within your friendship circles or in your community, and you have a thought around some of the excessive spending that we are seeing, and maybe you've reflected on what does this do for a child's growth. Does it add to a child's self-esteem or not? And also in the context of schooling, where there are children from different backgrounds coming together in school to engage and interact, does it put a pressure on you as a working, ordinary, single parent who can't afford 100,000 dress, who can't afford a designer shoe, can't afford a designer bag, or, to rent out the latest fancy German automobile? Does it put a pressure on you and the kinds of conversation that you now must have with your child, so that they understand that we can't keep up with the Joneses? You can be friends with the Joneses, but you are not the Joneses. We are the Kumalos. Maybe wrong example too, because then I think of Basisane Kumalo and her financial bracket. You know what I mean? But we are who we are. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086 is the number to call us on.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
Anele Machisi joins us now, author and social commentator, to have this conversation, because, Anele, what is supposed to be a simple end-of-year celebration honoring your scholastic journey has evolved rather into a rather costly, opulent spectacle. And I wonder, how did we find ourselves here? When did we create this I can do better, or see me be better than the person's next door?
No, thank you. Thank you for having me, Bridget. It's actually a beautiful question as well. I think I'll start with this. I think peer pressure has evolved. We'll start with that, and it is, and this is for both the parent and the children. And it no longer is about to the point that you're making about what's happening with the Joneses next door, but the peer pressure now is algorithmic as well. It's algorithm driven. It's online, and both parents and children are online. And however, with that said, my number one response to peer pressure it's a response I once got from a mentor of mine, and that is, if peer pressure really or truly exists, then what is your pressure doing to your peers? Ooh. So, and that is that. So I'll start with that, and it's peer pressure. Both parents and children feel the need to demonstrate or to prove to the people around them that they can afford. And however, in the moment, or in making those decisions, we are in some way, we being parents, in some way are negotiating with our children's identity. Because beyond the expenses, for some families, it's about demonstrating their pride toward their children. However, the danger is when we use currency to prove identity.
Oh, let's hold that thought right there, Anele. We'll take the headline news and then we'll come back and continue the conversation. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can absolutely remain anonymous if you'd like to do so. Love to hear your thoughts around, this peer pressure. As you hear Anele says, it's evolved over the years for both parents and children. It's no longer just the physical, but it now lives online. The need to demonstrate and prove that you can afford, as well as the family next door. It's gone 1:30, the headline news, and then we'll be right back.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, the SACP has confirmed it will contest the 2026 local government elections independently following failed engagements with the ANC. The DA says it has requested a parliamentary inquiry against what it calls serious criminal matters surrounding the registration of vehicles donated by the Chinese embassy to the ANC Women's League. And the Gibela Rail Transport Consortium has described the draft National Rail Master Plan as a long overdue intervention that will help guide the future of South Africa's rail system. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Hey, as you listen to us, can you afford to accommodate your child's matric dance farewell? Most farewells happen either in the first quarter of the year or perhaps leading into the prelims, and then some happen in the last quarter of the year. Are you affording to put this together, the dress, the suit, the car, the hair, the makeup, the photography? Because now children live online. Everything must be Instagrammed and put into a reel for TikTok so other people can see. How much are you spending on the matric dance farewell? And do you feel a pressure based on what your neighbor is doing, based on what your children's classmates are doing and what their parents are doing for them? And coupled to that, a pressure, social pressure from Instagram to present a particular lifestyle aesthetic. And we're catching up with Anele Machisi now, who's an author and social commentator around this conversation. And Anele, I love what you talk about, when you say the peer pressure has evolved for both parents and children because it's algorithmic now. It's online. That we often make that funny throwaway that says, if you didn't Instagram it, it didn't exist. It didn't happen, and you look at just how Instagram curated that particular one platform is. People are presenting the soft life, which translates into a luxury life, a high-end life. And that creates all kinds of social pressures for children, even looking at their idols and their role models, their celebrities, and how they internalize that kind of messaging.
Yeah, true. What we're experiencing is, I always compare it to, I always say, in fact, that it's no longer about the matric dance. The same way the Durban July is no longer about horses. We seem to have shifted from celebration to competition, from attendance to arrival, because that's all these expenses are not about being present at the event. They are about arriving at the event, which is exactly the same format as the other event that I've mentioned. The second thing is that another thing that leads to that, or that seems to feed from that, in my observation, is that in some sad way, we seem to be treating every occasion like it's a club, whether it's a high-end club or a groove. We are seemingly becoming set on this single format of showing up at different moments. And in my opinion, this somehow robs us of being present in the true memory of the actual event. And that is to say, for example, when we're talking about the matric dances, we should ask parents, you just ask themselves this simple question, and that is, what is the purpose of the day? That very simple question. What is the purpose of the day? Because once you understand the purpose of the day, then you will adjust how you need to show up, or how your child needs to show up, or how you need to show up as a family to the occasion. In other words, how do we answer the invitation?
When we have this conversation, obviously we're also having it on the back of the multitude of corruption that's happening in the country, that the social commentary has been, so all this corruption is fueling the Instagram lifestyle that we see. And I'm borrowing from someone's thoughts yesterday. I'm paraphrasing. I didn't save this tweet, but they said, isn't it interesting? We live in a society that today they shun and they judge criminality, but tomorrow they go like the post, the luxury post, sort of depicting the soft luxury life. The two go hand in hand, and I think to some extension, that kind of arrival that you talk about, that kind of celebration versus competition, is spilling over. That pressure is spilling over into family.
And that's true, and also, just put differently, it's actually the normalization of financial overreach, and whether it's in the form of corruption or our ability to afford. So, and it's just financial overreach, and again, in my opinion, it is a missed opportunity for financial education and priority. For instance, I was having this conversation with a niece of mine last year, similar conversation on matric, and my response to my own family was like, I'm not the person to talk to when you're talking matric dances. Talk to me when we're talking about what is she planning to do the following year. I'll come in when we're talking about university registration. You guys take care of the matric, because I understood one thing, and that is, in my opinion, if I were to get involved, then my approach would be more academic. And by saying that, we are missing the opportunity to teach about finances. Something as simple and practical as this. You can say to the child, you know what, for every distinction that you get, let's put an amount to it. I'll give you 400 rand or 500 rand for every distinction that you get. But whatever amount you give them, you'll find out that it would be less than the amount you would have spent you would have excessively spent on the matric. It's not to say the event in itself is not important. However, you can have a cheap arrival, an expensive attendance, and a priceless matric, because you have reached all your targets, and the family has been able to make sure that you do so without incurring any debt, and you've learned trade-offs, you've learned budgeting, you've learned long-term thinking. And so that's why I say that in some of these moments, it becomes a missed opportunity on conversations about money.
Because I think, to your point, you're painting a picture where parents are not saying it's a limitless budget. You as you say, you are using the moment as a teachable moment versus, for instance, sort of teaching your children that anything goes at whatever cost, and having that being fueled by a sense, you justify it by a sense of saying you don't want your child to feel left behind. You don't want your child to feel lesser than. Because what does that mean, to your earlier point about how are you negotiating your children's identity and where they place value?
Exactly. And also, there's a need also for both parents and children to understand that luxury does not have the same format. In moments like that or events like that, the memory is the actual luxury.
Yeah.
Being present, having been able to take in the moment, that's the luxury. Being there with your family, that's the luxury, not the label, not the brand. No, it's being there with your family. It's simple things. I've seen families go from, they were there with the kid who was in their Pep or Mr. Price outfit, and then from there they go and enjoy their wimpy, and they take pictures, and they go home. And the child also does well, at the end of the matric. That's the wealth.
Yeah.
You have family, you had conversations, you had this, that's the wealth. And I think sometimes, and I'm open to discuss as well with parents, I think sometimes as parents, we try to give our children what we lacked in our own childhoods when we were coming up. So we try to compensate with that. And so in other words, we start parenting from a deficiency. Instead of being the parent that the moment is asking from you, you are trying to be the parent that you never had to your child.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause on that one. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. We'll come back on the other side with your WhatsApp thoughts.
You can become a victim of a legal problem: wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
All right, so Top Billing is back, and this time round with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. Get ready to experience the world of luxury, travel, design, and inspiring stories with a dynamic new presenters, Zozibini Tunzi, Brioni Govender, Ano Grief, and of course, Sinemi Mpulo, bringing their unique style, energy, and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3 Thursday, the 30th of April at 7 p.m., with repeats on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. Top Billing is back, and you don't want to miss it.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, Bridget. My daughter's metric dance is next week on Friday. She's very much excited to be attending the metric dance. It's quite expensive. I think it's worth it. For me and her mom, it's because she has been doing very well in school, and I hope she's going to be motivated to get good results for metric and probably have very, very good memories on Friday.
Good afternoon to you and the SAFM listeners. I think the pressure also comes from our own experience, because what we cannot take away is that we are also young parents. I remember my own matric, for example, in 2003, the embarrassment that comes after not being in the same level as your peers when it comes to clothes, to the car that you go with at the matric. So you want for your child to not feel the way that you felt. It's not like the old days. Now I can actually remember my own matric farewell from A up to Z. So you're just trying to make sure that your kid experience is different, and also they do not face the bullying that comes after not attaining the same level as the other children when they go to the matric farewell.
Afternoon, B. Parents will toy for school uniform and school fees. But for the one-day future event, they will spend a lot, just like Mgidi. They don't want to pay even municipal bills. Ooh. I wonder, where is our country going, especially blacks? Do remember, we've got lots of children. Thank you, B.
You know, Mamzo brings up another point, Anele, which we can saddle into this conversation, right? And I have a lot of Xhosa friends from the various tribes. And Umgidi is another one You know, one of my friends once said, "Ooh, Ngidi, the pandemic," because of just the sheer opulence of it all. And it speaks to what you were saying, Uti. How are we arriving at the moment, in that moment? How are we arriving and what are we arriving for? And I also get what parents are saying around their own personal experiences growing up and where maybe their parents struggled and lacked a little bit, and the kind of experience that subsequently they had in school because they couldn't measure up to their peers and wanting to do better for their children so their children don't experience that hurt. But how do we strike that balance? Because surely that does not speak to then being overly indulgent.
It's quite simple. It's honestly quite simple. It's two responses to that. The first one is that decent is okay. You know, luxury is not compulsory. It's an option. Just show up decent, whether it's umgidi or it's farewell. Just show up decent. You know, put on a decent outfit. Doesn't have to be a 10,000, 20,000, or 30,000 rand outfit. Just decent suffices, and it's okay. And you can still have the time of your life, whether it's umgidini or it's a matric farewell. So we've created this impression, which is my second point, and that is that the illusion that everyone is doing it. And that's the effect social media has had on society. You know, it's created this extreme example that everyone is doing it, when in reality many families are choosing modest, thoughtful approaches because they are aware or cognizant of their financial circumstances, not just the now, but the future as well, because this is also the reality as well. Again, I sit a lot, especially with the men. I have a lot of conversations with men and family stuff and different things. And one of the conversations that usually comes up when we're talking about money and parenting is how many of us fall outside of the NSFAS gap because of how much we earn. And at the same time, that bracket also excludes our children. So our children cannot qualify for these things. So we are constantly having conversations on what is the best policy, what is the best product, what is this for the kids. And I'm saying that because as parents of this generation, to the voice note that the listener was saying, talking about that we are young parents, we also need to be aware that as a generation as well, whether it's Gen Xers or millennials, we are often income rich but asset poor, and we need to be careful not to transfer that to the next generation.
Shoo. You know, wow. Often income rich but asset poor.
We are asset poor, yeah.
And that doesn't speak to, you know, because also we need to expand in this generation, because assets don't speak to what we just did with my team this morning, you know, engulfing ourselves in luxurious brands and leather goods and all these things that add no appreciating value generationally. That stuff is good and well, and I don't judge anybody because I indulge myself. But we are talking here the ability to build a real foundation of wealth for your children that's based on things that actually hold value, not things that we are adorning ourselves with for that momentary pleasure.
Yes, the point that you're making actually talks to what we as parents have started doing. We've started reframing success and saying success for your 12 years in matric is the event, whereas the real milestone is finishing school and stepping into adulthood with a successful or with an excellent pass rate, or what do they call it now, a diploma or certificate for your matric certificate. That's the success. The moment itself, the matric then should never overshadow the 12 years of that you have put into the school. The second thing that also often goes unspoken when we're talking about this is everyone's emotional intelligence in the moment. The child's emotional intelligence and the parent's emotional intelligence, because it is often overshadowed by the aesthetics of things. And we seldom discuss as families, how do we feel about ourselves going into this monumental experience.
Yeah, you've definitely given us, I think, incredible things to just sit on and think about and reflect on in our quiet moments as parents and caregivers. And then have these conversations with our children, have these honest conversations with them around setting limits, around how we place value and identity, around how we show up in respective moments, and who we are and who we want to be. And I think that is the crux of this conversation, beyond just the affordability element of it all. Anele Machisi, thank you so much for your time, author and social commentator. And of course, we still welcome your views on WhatsApp, 061-410-4107. If you want to weigh in on this, how much are you spending on your child's matric farewell? And what are your thoughts about some of the things that Anele has spoken about here? Maybe you have a different perspective. Hey, maybe you feel like you work that hard and you earn that much, or you're willing to sacrifice that much for your children to have that moment, no matter what it costs. And you're more than welcome to do so, because it's a non-judgmental space. We just come at it to share our various experiences. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion, because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours, and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. Easy to apply, no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all. Under the theme, Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAFM will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Top Billing brings you the very best in lifestyle, luxury and inspiration, from breathtaking homes and dream destinations to exclusive access to the people shaping culture and success. This is where style meets substance and every story shines. Tune in to the new season of Top Billing on S3 Thursdays at 7 p.m. starting from the 30th of April, with repeats on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. You can also stream Top Billing live on SABC Plus, which is available on all app stores and on your smart TV. Top Billing, the best of the good life.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
All right, a quick chat now looking at the trials of Winnie Mandela, the documentary film which airs on Netflix, and Her Royal Highness Swati Mandela Dlamini, co-producer of the trials of Winnie Mandela, joins us now to talk about this incredible project. Good afternoon to you, Swati. How are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon, Bridget. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for the time. I mean, let's begin with when the work began in putting together the documentary and some of the focus points that you wanted to feature and highlight through the story.
So the work began for me 13 years ago when my niece had passed away, and we were unveiling her tombstone, and my grandmother came to me and gave me a journal that had been returned to her by Greta Soggett, who was the widow of her lawyer at the time when she was in solitary confinement. I didn't know why she was giving it to me, but she just said, I trust you to do what you feel best. So I handed it over to the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And then a few months later, we started to transcribe the journal. And then thereafter, we decided to turn it into a book. And then my grandmother received a phone call from a good friend of hers, Ivo Ichakovitz, who's very much interested in oral archive history and the history of the continent, Africa, the diaspora. and specifically my grandmother's story because they'd been dear friends for so long. And he loved the project and said, I'd love to support this in any way that I can. What can we do? So initially it was, going to be sort of a 5-minute sort of scissor reel to support the book. We were supposed to go on tour, but my grandmother fell ill, so we couldn't do that. And then we decided to actually just go on the journey of telling her story. Initially, it was just off of 491 Days. That's her memoir, her journal. And then it just became something where we just decided to really try and tell her story in its entirety. So for me, it's been 13 years working on this project.
You've also featured some prominent voices as well as family here. Tell us, for instance, one or two individuals that maybe, or story that folks might not be familiar with that comes to the light.
I mean, there's so much, Bridget, that I can even cover. I think for me, the most intimate parts of my sister and I, sitting down with my grandmother and her recounting to us her history and her story. Like the documentary covers so many themes. It's about love, it's about war, it's about betrayal, it's about truth, it's about judgment, it's about family, it's about politics. And so, there's so many different accounts and so many different stories. I mean, I was just actually watching it yesterday, and watching the TRC, I must say, was very difficult and very challenging for me. I hadn't even seen myself in the courtroom, so I saw myself in the courtroom yesterday, on TV. And the one story that my sister remarks is how she was in Boston at the time of the TRC, and none of us had told her that the trials were actually beginning. So she comes from school, and her friend says, "Have you seen your grandmother on TV?" And she switches on the TV, and there's my grandmother sitting on trial at the TRC. Obviously under very, very, very difficult and hard trial. So that was sort of for me, hearing my sister, sort of recount that experience for herself and how she felt being so far away from home and not being able to be with family at such a difficult time, and such a challenging time for my grandmother. So I think it's just like, so many moments like that, us as a family had not really kind of like, just gone down memory lane to talk about. And this is sort of like the first time that we kind of sit down together with her and sort of go there to some very difficult subjects.
Let's actually play a snippet of the trailer from The Trials of Winnie Mandela, the documentary film.
The wife of Nelson Mandela has died.
The woman hailed by some as the mother of South Africa.
Who knows how people will meet this image of Mama Winnie in 100 years? Because we won't have the bias of today.
Many people don't really understand who is Winnie.
I don't know where the story begins.
We're going on this journey, right? We're finding out the truth, right? We're finding out her story. We should ask her tomorrow.
How do you ask your grandmother, are you a murderer? Are you a kidnapper?
Did you have an affair with Granddad?
If she wants to express her views, she will do so at an appropriate time. He just said that I was out of control. I wouldn't succumb to some of the things he ordered me to do.
Truth can be spoken now.
What that harassment did was destroy the emotion of fear. I fear nothing.
Don't take me. I'm coming.
She fought a lone war because there wasn't anybody around.
It was war, and she used methods that were within the bounds of what was acceptable amongst her side of the revolution.
Her bodyguards, the Mandela United Football Club, were terrorizing Soweto.
She started beating us, and everybody started to jump in.
You are dealing with young children who will get excited by anything.
I want the bone of Spongiso.
They never killed one single person.
What is the truth? The truth is many different things.
Any one of us needs to put ourselves in that situation and ask ourselves the question, then what do I become?
It makes us confront our own icons.
Who holds 100%? Who is this who holds 100% of sainthood?
And that is the trailer from the trials of Winnie Mandela, the documentary film that's airing on Netflix. As we wind down the conversation in our final minute and a half, Swati, I think that last question becomes a pertinent one, right? As in, who holds 100% of sainthood, and the question of confronting one's icons. And for you and your sister in this case, it's also confronting not just an icon, but also confronting your grandmother, stories you've heard, stories you've had to reckon with, things spoken and things unsaid.
Yeah, I mean, Bridget, I say, like, this is probably the most important project I'll ever do in my life. And I think my grandmother giving me permission to be able to go down this journey. And there's nothing that my grandmother shied away from. She was supportive of every single person we wanted to interview, every single story we wanted to tell. And I think it was her moment of saying, this is me being able to finally tell my side of the story, and what better way, and what a privilege to me and my sister that my grandmother was able to go on this journey with us. And I think it gave her a bit more comfort to be able to do it with her grandchildren. I mean, listen, these are some of the things that we never talked about as a family. So for us, literally, when you're seeing it on camera, it's the first time we'd ever talked about it, So that for us was very, very eye-opening. But at the same time, I mean, my sister and I always say, like, at the end of the day, that's our grandmother. We love her more than anything. And we're so proud that she, is who she is, and we come from where we come from. And that she gave us this gift of being able to tell her story in her last and final years. So it's a labor of love. And I pray that, she's proud of us and proud of the work that we've done. And yeah, I hope that everyone who watches it really takes something away and does ask themselves that question: who has, and who can ask themselves, who has the 100% saint or sinner. So I think that's something that people will grapple with. And I think it's going to be interesting for people to sort of unpack that for themselves.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time. That was Royal Highness Swati Mandela Dlamini, co-producer of the trials of Winnie Mandela, alongside her sister Uzaziwe Manawe. It's 2 o'clock, time for Ndalambana and the top of the hour news.
Thank you, Bridget. On the top stories, SACP to contest 2026 local government elections, and Africa's travel in Indaba is set to take place from 11 to 14 May. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good day. The SACP has confirmed it will contest the 2026 local government elections independently following failed engagements with the ANC. The party briefed the media today in Braamfontein, accusing the ANC of issuing ultimatums to its members and taking what it calls an anti-communist stance. Marking a sharp escalation in tensions within the tripartite alliance, the SACP has framed the dispute as a broader political and ideological struggle. SACP General Secretary Solima Baila.
Our independent contestation is also not a retreat from the struggle for alliance reconfiguration. It is part of that struggle. It is not a retreat from the National Democratic Revolution itself. It is a struggle over its class direction, its organizational content, and its future.
The DA says it has requested a parliamentary inquiry against what it calls serious criminal matters surrounding the registration of vehicles donated by the Chinese embassy to the ANC Women's League. Social Development Minister Sisisi Dolashe is alleged to have registered the luxury vehicles under her two children's names. The DA has laid criminal charges against Dolashe at the Cape Town police station about the alleged non-disclosure of the two cars and also for allegedly giving Parliament false information. The AMP on Social Development, Nazli Sharif, says the inquiry they are seeking will play a crucial role in getting to the bottom of the matter.
And just recently, we've written to the Portfolio Committee on Social Development to request a parliamentary inquiry. Now, this parliamentary inquiry is going to be very, very important because the fact of the matter is social development is a very big portfolio. It's a portfolio that is very important as it deals with the most vulnerable people in South Africa. It cannot be that we have a political principle that continuously finds herself in the midst of scandals, in the midst of chaos, when we have so many people who who can't afford to put bread on the table. We have women who are struggling with GBVF. They don't have shelters to go to. We have babies dying in SASSA lines. We have people going to SASSA at 4 a.m. in the morning and not getting any assistance.
The Gibela Train Transport Consortium has described the draft National Rail Master Plan as a long overdue intervention that will help guide the future of South Africa's rail system. The plan, which will be published for public comment and consultation, aims to revitalize passenger and freight rail while positioning the sector as a key driver of economic growth. CEO of the Gibela Rail Transport Consortium, CEO Reggie Boko, says the plan provides clear direction for the industry.
I think this launch was long overdue. It's the National Rail Master Plan is a lodestar for the rail industry in the whole country. I think the time has come now that we have a vision of the country where all of us as industry players can insert ourselves and be able to take the country forward. So it's a huge milestone, particularly in the reform program that the government has been following. Our long-term vision is to anchor PRASA and support their vision of ultimately in the next 5 years to be able to record 600 million passenger trips. At the moment, they have just over 100, and there's a long way to go.
6 men have been arrested for allegedly manufacturing and distributing counterfeit alcoholic beverages estimated at over 500,000 rand in Stutterheim in the Eastern Cape. Police spokesperson Majola Nkotli says officers followed up on information and pulled over a vehicle that was travelling from Kukompo City to Stutterheim last night. Nkotli says a search of the vehicle led them to a house in Entilini where they found 5 occupants producing and packaging various brands of counterfeit alcoholic spirits.
Police seized several boxes of illicit alcohol and 6,570 cash. It is believed that the site has been operating as a manufacturing factory from 2025. The 6 suspects, aged between 22 and 36, are due to appear in court soon on charges of contravening the Counterfeit Goods Act 31 of 1997. They will also be charged for contravening the Liquor Act.
The 2026 edition of Africa's Travel Indaba is set to take place from 11 to 14 May at the Nkosi Albert Luthuli International Convention Centre in Durban. Speaking during a stakeholder webinar, Minister of Tourism Patricia de Lille announced that President Cyril Ramaphosa will officially open the tourism trade show this year. The annual event brings together more than 1,300 exhibitors from over 27 African countries, along with thousands of international buyers. It aims to drive tourism growth, showcase African travel products, and facilitate business deals across the continent. De Lille also called for stronger continental collaboration and increased investment in the tourism sector. Recapping the top story, the SACP has confirmed it will contest the 2026 local government elections independently following failed engagements with the ANC. I am Mondelambana for SFM News Headlines at 2:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.4 FM in Durban. If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, unfair blacklisting, or an uncontested divorce, Clientele Legal offers professional legal services to all South Africans. Our plans are affordable, and you receive up to 745,000 rand worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our nationwide legal teams are standing by to support you 24 hours a day. Plus, all plans include a 5,000 rand bail benefit. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T&Cs online. Standard rates apply.
The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay.
Some songs take you back instantly to your first love, a road trip, or just simpler times. The soundtrack of your life with me, Ernest Pillay, is where timeless hits and forgotten favorites come together to tell your story.
Looking out
It's not just music, it's memories, moments, and the meaning behind this jam.
Don't you change someone by night.
Rediscover the songs that shaped your journey. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m., only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Standing on his own.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM. You are listening to The Full Circle.
Wale, wale.
Trezo featuring Sophia Nzua with Wale Wale. I did ask, every time we play the show, and I always ask, because if I remember correctly, I think Sophia is Kenyan. She's either West African or East African, but yeah. And I always ask if somebody maybe comes from her region or, her place of kinship. Kenyan. She's Kenyan. I remembered that she was Kenyan. If they could give us a voice note, send us a voice note with the pronunciation around her surname. One of my favorite songs, that Wale Wale. It's gone 2:15 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. We are live streaming the show, so you can catch us on our social media platforms at SAFM Radio is where you'll find the live streams across all these social media platforms. And of course, you can always communicate with me on X as well, at Bridget Masinga, hashtag The Full Circle. We're continuing the conversation that we began, was it Monday or Friday? But we've just had this conversation around road rage, and we thought we'd continue it and reflect on just the broader violent culture within the country, the broader lawlessness of the country, and some of the societal ills that might inform our attitudes and our mental and psychological state when we get behind a vehicle and when we are confronted with situations on the road. This comes on the back of that recent road rage incident in Emmarentia that left one person dead and another person injured. And it's reignited the conversation on road rage. And we thought we'd engage Malaika Mahlatsi, who's a writer and activist, around a piece that Malaika wrote on the subject. Good afternoon to you, Malaika. How are you?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm very well. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your listeners as well.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate it. I mean, whilst we're dealing with this most recent incident of road rage that hit the headlines, a day after we had the conversation on the show, and it's just memory can't serve me whether we had the conversation on Thursday last week or we had it on Monday. The days become one on the show. I went to bed that night, and on social media there was another incident that had happened internationally around an influencer who, in the moment of physical fighting with other female influencers, decided to get behind the wheel of her parked vehicle and make the decision to ram into the other female, ram into a backup in that moment of rage and anger. For you, what is it? What is it about Emmarentia and other incidents like that have struck the chord and made you want to look at this a little bit deeper?
So, for me, and I'll tell you one thing, Bridget. So, I have taken a decision I don't like to view videos of incidents of this nature. But for whatever reason that I can't explain, someone sent me the link, and I made the mistake of watching that video. I think before we even get into the deeper issues of it, I need to say this. Bridget, seeing that video was really, really debilitating. It was very, very devastating. I was even unsure that I'd be willing to do this interview because of just how traumatic that Emmarentia incident was, because it involved children, And in the video, there you can see now this young boy having, tried to give CPR to his dying father, his hands being covered in blood and all of that. And I think it seemed bad for me, and what that child went through. The images that it brought into my mind were images about violence in general. That's what inspired the article. Because when I saw that, I actually started thinking about children in Gaza, children in Lebanon and stuff like that. And I started to think seriously about what is it about this violence, and particularly in South Africa. And it became very clear to me that we are not dealing with an issue about the story. The headline is about road rage in Emmarentia. But the issue is about a culture of violence in our society. Bridget, South Africa has got a culture of violence that goes beyond what happens on the roads, right? The mere fact that in that incident, we are dealing with two different drivers who both had guns in their own cars, right? We are not getting into now the merits of who shot first, who didn't shoot and all of that. But two drivers, one of which includes a father, a mother and children there, and another driver. The mere fact that in our country we've got people who are driving on the streets and they're driving around and they have got guns in their cars and all of that, That in itself is a point of reflection, because the country that we live in is such that we are living in a country where people are feeling that they need to arm themselves in their own cars. This is not in their houses, in their own cars. That is a point of reflection, and it's something that tells us about the nature of violence in society, in our society. But it's not just about, the violence of guns and all of that. Look at the most recent statistics from the September to September to December sex statistics on crime in South Africa. Look at the numbers, especially when it comes to violent contact crimes. Look at even, sexual, when we often talk about rape and sexual offenses and sexual crimes, but look at the percentage of the kinds of contact crimes that we're talking about. Assault with grievous bodily harm in that category constitutes 45% of the violent contact crimes. That is telling us something about the nature of the society that we are in.
Yeah.
So it is not simply road rage. It is a culture of violence in our society.
I want us to hold on that thought, Malaika, and take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side and continue the conversation, looking at the deeper issues that plague the culture of violence within South Africa.
You can become a victim of a legal problem: wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Spar Winner Car is back. Stand a chance to win one of 50 Hyundai Extras when you buy participating products, like 1 kg stock country spread tub for 46.99. Save 10 Rand or 80-gram Cadbury chocolate slabs, excluding bubbly. Buy any two for 36. Save 14 Rand. Price is valid from 22 April till 10 May. Shop, swipe, and win while stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
Bridget Masinga is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Malaika Mahlatsi joins us, writer and activist, as we reflect on a broader violent and lawlessness culture within South Africa. And this comes on the back of the most recent headline around that road rage incident in Emmarentia, which has left one person dead and another in critical injury. And of course, this incident involving children as well. We find ourselves in this situation, Malaika, when we look at statistics, for instance, where we look at more than 27,000 serious assaults that are linked to road rage that were recorded in the last quarter of 2023. We look at the fact that 47% of road rage incidents are perpetrated by drivers aged 18 to 25. What does this tell us? Because you unpack this in your opinion piece. What does this tell us about how, for instance, young people are engaging and dealing with anger?
So I think what it's telling us, right, it's telling us two things. And the part that you've raised is correct about young people engaging with violence. But what it also tells us is young people socialized into violence, right? Because the age range that you're talking about, you are correct, is age 18 to 25, right? These are, an 18-year-old is a young person. Bridget, I've got a 22-year-old brother, he's a kid. I look at him as a child, right? People at that age are acting out on the things that they see in the society around them. It is what is normal around them. Take something of this nature very simply. And I'm raising this with you. I'm sitting here, I'm speaking to you from Cape Town. In the Cape Flats here, children the age of 8 to 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds are being recruited into gangs, into crime. Those who are not being recruited into that are witnessing this every day. Children are being exposed, gunshots going everywhere and so on. This is happening in the household, in our homes in South Africa. Children are experiencing domestic violence in the form of hearing and seeing their parents going through that. Children are seeing violence in the communities that they have been raised in and so on. And so what we have in South Africa is an infrastructure of violence, right? Children are growing up in this infrastructure of violence. And so by the time a child is 18 years old, right, that statistic that you've spoken about, where they start engaging in that violence, by the time they're 18-year-olds, they have had an entire lifestyle from their childhood through to their adolescence, where they have been exposed to all manner of violence. But it's not only the violence in its physical form or sexual violence or even violence of being exposed to guns, right? It's a systematic violence as well that people experience in conditions of poverty, in conditions of perpetual economic and financial stress, right? In conditions also of having systems that don't work, right? People who are living in situations where there's no access to water, governments have collapsed and all of that. That in itself is what we call systematic violence. It's a violence that visits people in their lives. And so that it should not shock us, Bridget. It's a devastating statistic that we are speaking about. But it should not shock us that there are people who engage in road rage violence. And you spoke about 27,000 things, but there's also 1,000 deaths in that statistic, 1,000 deaths in one quarter from road rage, right? It's happening because the people who are perpetrating this kind of violence are people who have grown up in this infrastructure of violence. And I want us briefly, Bridget, to link this up to the violence that we are seeing, to the Masinga Commission as we are watching it, right? Now you've got an infrastructure of violence that exists where children are socialized into the violence. Now you've got law enforcement officials and law enforcement institutions themselves being embroiled in that infrastructure of violence. And so the institutions that are supposed to deal with violence in South Africa, we are discovering through these commissions and reports and other things and so on, that they themselves are at the forefront of perpetrating and participating in this kind of violence, right? We are seeing police officers being the ones who are assisting the criminal underworld, municipal officials in our municipalities and so on, being embroiled in this kind of violence as well. And so you have that infrastructure that is very ripe for an 18-year-old to become a person who, when their car gets bumped on the road and all of that, takes out a gun, because guns are also very easily available and accessible, both legal and illegal. That infrastructure makes it very difficult for any young person to grow up and not see violence as a norm, because in fact, it is normalized in our households, in our government, in our cities, in our churches, everywhere that a young South African child grows up in, and particularly a young black or a young colored South African grows up in. That is the reality of the existence of their life. It's the life of violence. And so violence is normal. So it's not. So when we see it happening with road rage, it is not just simply a violence of road rage. That is a life of what it means to be a South African. It is a life design. So if you are not committing violence, you are experiencing violence. That is what is happening in our country. You are either committing it or you are experiencing it, Bridget, or you are watching it.
What a sobering truth. It is a life designed. You either committing it or you are part of it. And that's a sad, unfortunate truth. So where do we begin to try and redress this situation, to try and deal with, the systematic infrastructure that feeds into this culture? Because it's not simply about the conversation we were having the other day about counting 1 to 10, lowering your voice, not meeting the gaze. It's not about dealing with the moment in the moment, but it's about how do we deal with the entire society so that we don't find ourselves having to deal with the repercussions of it.
Bridget, at the core, ultimately, it comes down to who do we elect in offices of power. It really ultimately comes down to that. Because remember, it is the legislators of the country that we elect. We decide on the government that we want. It is the government that we decide to elect that makes a determination on whether or not there's going to be consequence management when wrong things are happening within the state. When you've got a state that functions, you've got a government that functions, you've got a government that supports the work of community-based organizations and NGOs, you've got a government that allows an infrastructure and an environment in which you can have thrive, you've got a government that does the work that it's supposed to do, right? Then you would not be having issues around, the socio-economic. You would not have been having an exacerbation of the socio-economic challenges that force people into a life of crime, a life of gangsterism and all of that. An interesting report was released about a month ago. I wrote an article on that as well by some organizations in the Cape Flats and in the Eastern Cape, speaking about, what kind of resources need to be in place in these areas that are gangster prone. for young people to not be part of that life. And one of the things that was very devastating about that is that these initiatives that are being done by NGOs and community-based organizations do not have the adequate resources and support to be able to contribute to dealing with violence at its core, what is gang violence at its core and at its source, right? And so how do we then think about it as a government to say, what is it that the government needs to do in order to assist? Because we must not pretend like there are no people on the ground who are already doing work. There are so many brilliant initiatives that are on the ground, Bridget, where people are trying to do the work to fix the communities where they live. And the government of South Africa, as well as the private sector, needs to meet these organizations and these initiatives halfway.
Yeah.
We need to avail both financial and non-financial resources to enable people to continue to do the work in their community, because dealing with issues of this nature needs to happen at the source. It's not something that's going to be decided upon simply at a legislative level and you leave it there. There needs to be implementers. There needs to be people who are ensuring that children are not being exposed to this thing. Children are being given alternative ways of life. 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds are not on the streets being exposed to this. And that comes down to leadership.
Absolutely.
It ultimately comes down to leadership.
Malaika, we have to leave it there for this afternoon, but we appreciate the time. That was Malaika Mahlatsi, writer and activist. 2:30, time for the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, the SACP has confirmed it will contest the 2026 local government elections independently following failed engagements with the ANC. The Boksburg Magistrate Court has heard how large sums of money was paid to secure the release of a Ekurhuleni city manager, Kagiso Lerutla, after he was arrested for speeding in 2019. And tens of thousands of employees of the Samsung technology giant in South Korea have been protesting to call for higher pay and bonuses, threatening a weeks-long strike. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education. And if you miss any of our programs, you can catch up anytime on the SABC Plus app or on the SABC Plus website, www.sabcplus.com. Brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello friends and welcome to Nali Bali. Did you know that being safe is one of the most important things we can do for ourselves? Sometimes it might feel fun or exciting to walk off on your own, but it's not safe for children to go anywhere alone. When we are with a parent, a teacher, or a trusted adult, we are protected and cared for. But when we wander off alone, we can get lost, confused, or even end up in dangerous situations. That's why it's always better to stay close to someone we trust. Remember, being brave doesn't mean going off by yourself. Being brave means knowing how to make safe choices, like asking an adult to walk with you or waiting for a friend instead of leaving alone. So today, let's promise to keep ourselves safe by never going anywhere alone, because your safety is precious and you are important. Now get comfortable as we listen to today's story called The White Lion, written by Caspar Neruheni. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and... Chimbi lives with her granny in a village at the edge of a mysterious forest. Every morning, Chimbi opens her window and listens to the birds singing in the trees. Then she takes a deep breath. She loves the smell of plants and the tall trees growing in the forest. Chimbi's favorite time of the week is when her granny takes her to the forest to collect wild fruits for making jam and herbs and mushrooms for making soup and medicine. When they have finished gathering the fruit and herbs, Makulu sets up a picnic blanket so that they can enjoy their lunch in the forest. Makulu always packs sandwich with jam and tea to drink.
Mulberry jam is my favorite, Granny,
says Chimbi as she licks her fingers. After lunch, Granny says,
Chimbi, you may go and play in the forest for a while, but please stay close to our picnic spot.
Of course, Gogo.
Chimbi shouts as she runs off to explore. Chimbi loves all beautiful flowers and animals that live in the forest. She is very careful not to disturb or harm them. Too soon, Granny calls.
Come on, Chimbi. It's time to go home now.
On their way home, Granny always tells Chimbi a story about the forest that her mother used to tell her when she was Chimbi's age.
In the forest, there lives a mystical white lion that protects the animals and the people of our village. It lives in the deepest parts of the forest, and only people with pure hearts can see the lion.
Granny says,
Have you ever seen the white lion?
Asks Chimbi.
No, I have never seen this lion before,
says Granny.
But maybe one day you will, Gogo.
That night, Chimbi dreams of meeting the white lion and riding on its back across the forest. In the morning, Chimbi wakes up and goes to a window. But today, she cannot hear the birds in the forest and she cannot feel the wind on her face. Something is wrong.
Granny! Granny!
Shouts Chimbi, running to wake up her granny. But Granny is very sick and cannot get out of bed. Chimbi calls her aunt who lives next door to take care of her granny. Chimbi overhears Granny telling her aunt that she's too sick to go to the clinic because it's too far away. Chimbi feels very sad. She runs into the forest and starts looking for mushrooms and herbs to make Granny feel better. After some time, Chimbi looks up from searching the ground for mushrooms and herbs.
Wait, where am I?
She says. Nothing looks familiar. Chimbi had not been noticing any sign or markings to help her get out of the forest.
Oh no, I'm lost, and soon it will be dark.
Chimbi cries. She knows she should not have come to the forest on her own. Suddenly, Chimbi sees a bright light coming from the top of the trees. Then a kind voice says,
Hello, little girl. Why are you crying?
It is the white lion that Granny told her about. Chimbi feels strangely calm.
You're the white lion Gogo was telling me about. I came to the forest to look for mushrooms and herbs to make her feel better. But now I'm lost and I cannot get back to my village.
Chimbi explains.
I am the white lion of the forest. I take care of all the plants, animals, and people who live near my forest. Please don't cry. I know the way back to your village and I'll take you home.
The lion says. When they reach the edge of the forest, the lion suddenly stops.
Okay, I cannot take you further than this. I cannot leave the forest. Listen, you are brave enough to come and try to help your granny, but children should never go in the forest alone. And remember, you must never harm the animals and plants that live and grow in the forest. If you take care of them, they will definitely take care of you.
When Chimbi reaches her home, her aunt rushes out to greet her.
Oh, Chimbi, never ever leave home without your granny or me. It is not safe for children to be alone in the forest.
Then she gives Chimbi a big hug.
I went to the forest to get some herbs and mushrooms to make Granny feel better. I'm so sorry you were worried.
Chimbi answers in a gentle voice. Chimbi and her aunt make a delicious soup for Granny. Very soon, Granny feels much better.
Ah, Chimbi, thank you so much for helping me get better.
Says Granny.
Gogo, I saw the white lion we were talking about yesterday.
Whispers Chimbi.
You are a special young girl to have seen the white lion.
Granny tells Chimbi with a smile on her face. Chimbi is happy to see Granny smiling again.
Thank you, Forest, for giving us good plants to eat and make us feel better. And thank you, White Lion, for helping me find my way home.
Chimbi says softly. And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called The White Lion, written by Caspar Neruheni. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit the Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplement with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
If you miss any of our programs, you can catch up anytime on the SABC Plus app or on the SABC Plus website www.sabcplus.com. Brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, so on Sunday, it is World Intellectual Property Day. And this day is recognized and celebrated annually on the 26th of April globally. We thought we'd catch up with Darren Oliver, who is the partner at Adams & Adams Attorneys, and have a conversation around intellectual property and sports and understanding the South African legal framework around this. But first, maybe Darren, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Very well. How are you?
I'm great. Let's talk firstly maybe around, the significance of a World Intellectual Property Day. I know we have a day for just about everything, including hamburgers, but I never would have thought that, there would be a drive towards a day like this.
Yes, well, I mean, it's true. There is a day, a World Intellectual Property Day, and I think it's just simply to raise attention to this kind of intangible protection. You can't see it, but these rights protect you, and a lot of people don't know about them, and as a result, they don't invest in them to their detriment. So it's really good to show the overlap between one, highlight intellectual property, and then show the overlap with various things that we do every single day, like sport.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're right. The day is about spotlighting on things like patents, for instance, and copyright and trademark. And these become key conversations in certain sectors more so than other sectors. And when you look at sports, I would think, issues around copyright, around trademark, around image likelihood, whatever the technical term is there, become very important to understand.
Yeah, you sound like you know it already.
I know
Image
nothing.
rights. No, you're quite right. I mean, so it's just about all forms of intellectual property. So trademarks, copyrights, patents, designs, know-how, are all wrapped up every single time you watch. You watch your favorite sports teams play. Mamelodi Sundowns, whatever. It's happening on. We see the product, but really the currency around it is all wrapped up in intellectual property rights, whether it be owned by the club, the players themselves, the sponsors for the stadium. There's intellectual property at play all the time.
I mean, why is it? Why is it considered such an increasingly significant aspect and economic asset, especially in sports? I guess we can even extend it to say sports and gaming, for instance.
Yeah, well, that's both of those. So, I mean, you think of it. So, a national pastime of South Africa is sport, right? And increasingly, broadcasting and entertainment is wrapped up with sports. And what big sponsors pay for and where the big money is around exclusivity to brands, association with players, association with brands, association with, well, not association, but distribution rights. And those are all protected by intellectual property rights. So those who are, whether you're a player, whether you're a club, whether you're a brand, the idea is to sell on or to license the use of the intellectual property rights to the broadcaster, from the player to the club. And so there are royalty streams to be made around that exclusivity. And it all comes down to one kind of identifying what the brand is or what you're trying to protect, using intellectual property as cost effectively as possible and judiciously as possible to make sure that you can on sell or license that exclusivity. And by doing that, by paying attention to intellectual property rights, then you can monetize that. And that monetization, as you know, is often more valuable than what they get paid to play. If you take it for a player, it's all about the endorsement rights and the ability to leverage the brand, and everyone's doing that in that space. And intellectual property really is the currency that they're trading in.
As we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about it, and I haven't tracked the story very well. I just want to make that disclaimer. On social media, there's been a young entrepreneur who's created a brand called Kasi Flavor. I think he goes by the name of Kabelo Kongwane. And really it's about honoring the old school sports apparel, giving it a new lease of life. And then a competitor came into the market and sort of bit his idea and had the muscle, the financial capital and muscle to go with a bigger marketing budget to get his apparel out there. And there's now this tug of war and people obviously galvanizing behind the originator of the apparel. And that kind of conversation speaks to safeguarding yourself as a young entrepreneur, because now you have this great idea. You've gotten the go-ahead from these legacy soccer brands to do this thing. And then someone comes with a big financial muscle, takes your idea and completely runs with it and exploits a market that you laid the foundation for.
Well, we see that all the time. I mean, so I've worked in the sports industry for a long period of time. I've worked for entrepreneurs for a long period of time. And this is quite common, and so, but what it means is often you think, okay, the big players, they've got all the leverage and they'll just bully you out, and that's not always the case. If you are intelligent about how you use copyright, which is effectively free protection, trademark, which is not a huge amount of investment to get registered. If you pay attention to your contracts, just to make sure that there are contracts and non-disclosure agreements, that you've got good contracts in place with whoever you are dealing with, then the small guy can be protected quite just as well as the big guy. And if you have I dare say, a decent lawyer on your side, and they don't cost the earth, I can tell you that. if you partner with the right person early, you can find yourself having a kind of a moat of protection around you, even though you're a small player. And that's what it's about. And I think I also like to say that AI has got a huge amount to play on this, because a lot of people don't know about intellectual property, therefore don't invest in it, or they have the perception that it's expensive. And with artificial intelligence, with the amount of information that's really accessible these days, one can find themselves really, playing with the big boys without necessarily having the big boy budget.
Absolutely. I just want to steal in a quick commercial. We'll come back on the other side and continue for a further 4 or 5 minutes, Darren, if you'll indulge me.
No one gets fit overnight. It takes discipline, and your money is no different. A Nedbank 32-day notice account helps you build financial strength with up to 7.3% interest and zero maintenance fees. The higher the deposit, the higher the return. Invest in under 2 minutes on the Money app and get money fit with Nedbank. For more information, go to nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank, we're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
Top Billing brings you the very best in lifestyle, luxury and inspiration, from breathtaking homes and dream destinations to exclusive access to the people shaping culture and success. This is where style meets substance and every story shines. Tune in to the new season of Top Billing on S3 Thursdays at 7 p.m. starting from the 30th of April, with repeats on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. You can also stream Top Billing live on SABC Plus, available on all app stores and on your smart TVs. Top Billing, the best of the good life.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
In conversation for the final 5 minutes with Darren Oliver, partner at Adams and Adams Attorneys, on the back of it being World Intellectual Property Day, come Sunday, the 26th of April. While we're talking around, sports paraphernalia, sports entrepreneurs, how do emerging athletes or even sports entrepreneurs and smaller organizations, how do they proactively protect their IP without facing significant financial resource or using significant financial resource?
So most of the intellectual property around sports sits in brands, copyright, trademarks, and contracts. So copyright is free. It exists as you create it. So just understanding how it is created and doing some homework there, spending a bit of time on there, it's a very kind of automatic way of getting oneself protected at no cost at all, really, other than your own time. Trademarks, similar. You can register, when one should register a trademark and do a clearance search to make sure you're not infringing others, but they're not exorbitantly high costs. We're talking less than 10,000 rand, let's say, to apply to register a trademark, maybe even less, up to 2,000-3,000 rand, depending on the mark involved. So that normally is not prohibitive. And then contracts, just making sure that you've got the right contracts in place. And again, just making sure that you're educated enough to use a simple non-disclosure agreement, for example, can really go a hell of a long way to protecting one at a very low price. I would say, call up an IP attorney, speak to them, get them to do a project, or quote on a level that's not exorbitant. Often many of them will. They see that relationship as a partnership over a period of time, and they will invest in that. And if you get the right one, that's what will happen. And so there's a lot one can do by just equipping themselves with knowledge effectively on how to use these rights effectively. And you don't have to start with a Rolls-Royce approach to, when you start out. You can start out as, as a you can start small and grow as you grow and invest in your IP as you go along.
Yeah. Just a final question, perhaps that speaks to the more common mistakes that are made where it comes to intellectual property.
Yeah, so it's a flip side, really. It's being a bit naive. I think sometimes we're very good at innovating. To the opportunists, I'm talking about as a culture of, let's say, South Africans. And generalizing it at my peril, but we tend to be a bit like that and somewhat naive sometimes about about what can go wrong, and so those tend to and just putting one head in the sand and expecting that it won't go wrong. So just spending some time investing in the intellectual property rights will just lay foundations that I think will pay off in the long run. It's not to say that that IP is the answer, because it isn't. I mean, getting your route to market, getting your product out there is all important, and that's what should be one should concentrate on. But the IP is the foundation and pays off later on as you grow.
Absolutely. Darren Oliver, we appreciate the time, partner at Adams & Adams Attorneys, walking us through intellectual property and the importance thereof. In our final moments, we are going to wrap up the show by casting our eyes back to day 96 of the Madlanga Commission. And of course, today we saw a new witness on the stand, Tshwane Metro Police Department Junior Officer Inspector Lebogang Phiri, who's been accused of allocating security sites to private companies without authorization. And all this relates to the multi-million rand TMPD security tender, which the Commission has scrutinized for alleged irregularities. Looking at the time, we'll have just enough time to play back on our rewind audio with just some of the highlights from today. So I'll say farewell to you here and remind you that the National Pulse with Ashraf Gada has got your next update at 5:45 p.m. Inshallah, God willing, you and I get to do it again. And as always, we appreciate the time that you've given us. We'll see you tomorrow as we close off the week that was.
Mr. Peter, can you just explain so that I understand? So in this paragraph 16, are you describing a process that applies to the instruction in page 18, LA05? Are you saying that following that Malachi email, which tells you and Goobies about the deployments, you then issued the deployment letters? Is that the relationship between the two documents?
Thanks, Commissioner Baloyi. Here I'm explaining my duties. My mistake is that I didn't go further to say my recommendation were already disregarded. So I had to work with what they give me. If they say at the reservoir in Easteres already, they have given me the numbers. Mine is to verify and make sure that the deployment letter speaks to what is written on page 18.
What's confusing me is in 16, in your paragraph 16,
yes,
you say the notice, your first batch of deployment notices was on the 14th of January, and officially became effective on the 15th of January 2025. That's what you say in 16. Yes. But Director Malachi's email at page 18 says the deployment starts on the 7th of January. So I'm trying to understand the relationship between this page 18 email and your saying the deployment notices became effective on the 5th of January.
Commissioner, I also saw that after my statement, but to be clear, I remember that on the 14th, the thing is, I don't have the actual invoice. I might have said effective 15th, and they have started on the 7th. But already on the 7th, I knew that they were on site. Yeah, but because I was going around, remember it's no longer 2. It's a first batch, which is about, I can't remember, 15 or 17 or something. Now I'm still going around checking the batch that I have. And when I write this, if I have seen the actual invoice, I would have known that what happened there.
Can I just try and summarize what I think you're saying?
Yes.
You're saying you issued your notice on the 14th, and,
Yes.
and therefore, and it becomes effective on the 15th.
Yes.
Right? Regardless of the fact that these have already deployed on the 7th of January. Your notice is the 14th, and it will be effective the next day.
Yes.
On the top stories, SACP to contest local government elections and Samsung employees in South Korea on strike. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. The SACP has confirmed it will contest the 2026 local government elections independently following failed engagements with the ANC. The party briefed their media today in Braamfontein, accusing the ANC of issuing ultimatums to its members and taking what it calls an anti-communist stance, marking a sharp escalation in tensions within the tripartite alliance. The SACP has framed the disputes as a broader political and ideological struggle. SACP General Secretary Soli Mapaila.
Our independent contestation is also not a retreat from the struggle for alliance reconfiguration. It is part of that struggle. It is not a retreat from the National Democratic Revolution itself. It is a struggle over its class direction, its organizational content, and its future.
The Boksburg Magistrates Court has heard how large sums of money was paid to secure the release of a Ekurhuleni city manager, Kagiso Lerutla, after he was arrested for speeding in 2019. This emerged during the bail application of Lerutla and suspended EMPD Deputy Chief Julius Mkhwanazi. The court heard that the money was paid to Mkhwanazi through his driver. Mkhwanazi and Lerutla face charges of corruption, fraud and defeating the ends of justice. This stems from an incident in March 2019 when Lerutla was arrested by traffic police for speeding. The state says Mkhwanazi and Lerutla allegedly recruited an associate to impersonate Lerutla in court while he attended a job interview. State Prosecutor Nceba Mtelwa.
Applicant 2 paid the driver of applicant number 1 of about 400,000 in installment, which he shared equally with applicant number 1. From this incident, applicant number 1 used him more often to assist other department officials who had the same problems. 4.8. This is an assault to the criminal justice system by the person